Hello, it's MMA Fancast, episode 2. Today, we're previewing and predicting, or attempting to predict, UFC on Fox 17. It's Rafael Dos Anjos versus Donald Cerrone. Almost a rematch, isn't it? It's the Lightweight Championship. We've been waiting for this for quite some time. Dos Anjos beat Pettis to win that title. Now he's facing Cowboy for the second time. We'll move on to that fight, obviously, at the end. I just wanted to run through a few of the fights. I'm not running through all of them. Some of them just don't interest me. Some of them aren't. I don't really know too much about the individuals. So, first fight I was going to quickly look through was the Josh Saman versus Tamdan McCrory. McCrory back in the UFC after 2 fights in Bellator. He actually retired in 2009. I think he was away from the game for 4 years. Came back, 2 wins in Bellator. Now he's back in the UFC and he's fighting a tough opponent in Saman, I think. Although Saman's only had 4 fights, I think, in nearly 4 years, going back to like February 2012. He's on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC, and I see him winning this one. I just think he's got too much. He's big, man. He's big for that division. I'm looking at... He's got a 12-3 record with a 67% KO TKO ratio, which is pretty good. He's got a slight reach advantage. According to the stats on UFC, he's got a leg reach of 43 inches, and Tamdan McCrory has a 0-inch leg reach. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know how that's going to work. Strange. But yeah, I'm going for Saman, and my prediction on this one, a round 2 submission victory for Josh Saman. We'll see. So the next fight that I was looking at would be CB Dollaway versus Nate the Great Marquardt. Interesting fight. I don't think there's much potential for either of these. I think especially for Marquardt. It's not been pretty, let's be honest, his last few fights. He's been active, a pro MMA competitor since 1999, and when you think about this, a long time. 16 years professional in the game. That's a lot of time. And looking back at his record, I see that his best sort of time was between 2004 to 2009. He went on a decent run. I'm pretty sure he got popped for steroids at some point. He's lost 5 of his last 6, and they haven't just been losses. They've been 2 KOs, 1 TKO, 2 decisions. His last win was against James Tahuna. For me, I think Marquardt has had his best time, and it's passed. On the other hand, CB, he's one of those sort of mid-tier fighters that never really seems to break that the top level. I don't know where he is in the rankings, and I don't really care. He lost to Machida, he lost to Bisping. He's lost to Machida was the body kick, and then Machida just finished him, which was pretty brutal. I do like Dollaway. I think he's decent, but that's pretty much as good as it gets, is decent. I don't really see him breaking into the top 5 ever. I just don't think he's good enough. When you look at Marquardt's record, 36 wins, 15 losses. That must be, it's either 2 draws or 2 no contests. Must be 2 draws. CB Dollaway 16-8. So there's a hell of a lot of experience in there. A hell of a lot. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think, for me, I think Dollaway wins just by TKO. I think if you put pressure on, and we've seen it, I think if somebody puts pressure on Marquardt, it doesn't take too many heavy shots to see him turtle up, and it'll be over. That's the way I see it going. I don't know what round, but I see Dollaway winning this one. The next fight on my list is Charles Oliveira versus Miles Jury, and it's an interesting fight again. I think it's Miles Jury's first fight down in the featherweight division. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I know that his last loss was to Cowboy, and that was in January, so he's had plenty of time to lose the weight, to prepare himself for the drop down to featherweight. It'll be interesting, but his opponent, Charles Oliveira, his last loss was due to a neck injury, and that was against Max Holloway. So he's fighting those top-ranked fighters, and he's got 5 losses in the UFC. And on my list, when you look at the names of the people that he's lost to, he's got nothing to be ashamed of. We've got Max Holloway, Frankie Edgar, Cub Swanson, Cowboy, and Jim Miller. That's 5 people that I don't think many people would worry too much about losing to, because those are top-ranked guys. He was on a 4-fight win streak before the Holloway fight. So I have a feeling that Oliveira will win this. I don't know how it will happen. When you think about it, Miles Jury was 15-0 when he lost to Cowboy, so he was on a damn good run. But when you look at the level of opponent that he's faced compared, I know they're different friggin' weight divisions, although Oliveira did fight Cowboy in the lightweight division. I've got Oliveira winning this. I think he'll get back on the streak. I think the neck injury was unlucky, but I like Oliveira. I think he's got what it takes to get up there and put himself in the mix. Then I'm moving on to Michael Johnson versus Nate Diaz. Interesting fight. I think the concern for me here is with Johnson losing his last fight to Dariush, it's really knocked any talk of title contention completely out of the water for me. He was on a 4-fight win streak before that, but unfortunately it just didn't go his way. If I remember correctly, I think it was a bit of a dodgy decision, but the fact that he's got that loss on his record, it's kind of, I don't know, I think he's got a way to go now. That's my concern. I'm trying to read my own writing. Oh, he has beaten some decent opposition. Here's the list of decent opposition, in my opinion. Barbosa, Melvin Gillard, Gleison Tebow, Joe Lozon, and he did beat Tony Ferguson, although it was back in 2012. Whether he would be able to repeat that, I don't know. Moving on to Nate Diaz. Wow. If you like MMA, then you have to love the Diaz brothers, because they always bring it. It's the attitude. I love the attitude. I think Nick Diaz against Anderson Silva was one of the funniest moments in MMA fighting history, for me anyway. Nate's 17-10 overall, his record in MMA. He's lost 3 of his last 4. But can you ever count out a Diaz brother? That's the question. I don't think so. This one all depends on whether Johnson decides to take this fight to the ground for me. I think if it comes to just striking, Diaz's forward motion, the pressure, the constant pep of shots, it could cause Johnson, I don't know. In my opinion, I think it will cause Johnson to look for takedowns. I think maybe he'll reply with a few strikes and then look to set up some takedowns and just perhaps grind out a decision. I don't like the thought of the way that one will go. I would obviously like Diaz to win because he's a Diaz, and everybody wants the Diaz brothers to do well, or most people do. For whoever wins, I don't think they're anywhere near a title shot, or they shouldn't be really. But it'd be nice to see Diaz get back on the win streak, back on terms, and maybe look to get back up there, because we know that he has beaten Cowboy before as well. It'd be interesting to see where either of these two go after this fight, but my prediction is, unfortunately, not that I dislike Johnson, it's just that I like Diaz, is that Johnson will win this via decision. I think the co-main event is probably going to be the highlight for me of this card, and it's Junior Dos Santos versus Allistair Overeem. The amount of fights, we've got Dos Santos 17-3 in MMA, we've got Overeem 39-14. That is a hell of a lot of heavyweight experience going into the cage. Dos Santos, according to the UFC metrics, is around 238, and Overeem's at the limit of 265, so there might be quite a bit of size difference, but I'm not sure that's going to matter too much. I think Junior Dos Santos will win this. I forgot to turn my freaking page. Oh yeah. What have I written? Yeah, let's think about it. Dos Santos' 2 losses in the UFC have both come to Kane, and he has beaten Kane as well. whether it was a lucky shot or not, he got the win. He has been the heavyweight title holder, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he was able to get that back. Looking over his notable wins, we've got Crow Cop, we've got Roy Nelson, I can't even read my own writing, we've got Velasquez, we've got Verdum at some point, we've got Frank Mir, I can't even read the fucking rest. Tip, note for next time, make sure my writing is neater. Prepare. I did do a bit of prep because I didn't want to just start the video say, oh, Dos Santos will win by KO in third round, because that wouldn't have been any good. I wanted to have a bit of substance. I hate reading while I'm trying to record a video, but sometimes my brain just cannot contain all this information. Junior Dos Santos, for me, is one of the best strikers, probably the best in the heavyweight division, and he's up there in the UFC. He's got power, heavy hands, good boxing. His takedown defense isn't too bad either. It's pretty damn good. I think Kane was able to take him down, but Kane's a different animal. A lot of people said that Dos Santos will never be the same again after the Kane defeats, and he was beaten. And it was a tough fight against Miocic as well in his last one out. But I still think Dos Santos has got quite a bit in the tank. I don't even know how old he is. I don't know. He looks older than he probably is, but that's because of the beatings that he's taken. On the other hand, Overeem, expert striker, kickbox champion, MMA Strikeforce champion, he's got a lot of experience, but for some strange reason, Overeem's losses in the UFC seem to hold so much more weight than his wins. He's lost to, was it Ben Rothwell? And I'm not reading this. We know he lost to Rothwell. We know he lost to Travis Brown. That was awesome. And it was Bigfoot Silver. The 3 fights that he's lost, 2 KOs, I think. 2 KOs, 1 TKO, I think. But it was the Bigfoot Silver fight. Everybody remembers that knockout. And it's the Travis Brown back against the wall. Everybody remembers that. But like, Overeem's won a few fights too in the UFC. Obviously we remember the Brock fight, but it's weird. I think more people would like to see Overeem lose than win. Or that was certainly the case when he first came into the UFC. People wanted to see the Reem get beaten. I'm not so sure that's the case now. Perhaps people would like to see Allistair go on and do things. I don't know. But I think a lot of the perform-enhancing shit that was going around, you know, he's clearly not the same build as he was back a few years ago. His chin also doesn't seem to be able to take the shots that maybe he could at one stage in his career. But we'll see where this one goes. On my piece of paper, I can read it. I've got, this may surprise some, Dos Santos, round 1, TKO, or perhaps a straight KO. Although we would probably think maybe Allistair's the better striker overall, because he mixes it up with kicks, punches, knees, in the clinch, he's good, you know. But I think if Dos Santos catches him, it might be as quick as that. I'm going for the first round, and I'm going for Dos Santos to win, and then that puts him back right up there for possibly a shot against the winner of Kane Verdum. I'm not 100% sure. There's not that many more options. He's already beat Miocic. Perhaps chuck him back in against the winner of that. He has beaten both of those before, although he's lost also to Kane. I don't know. Dos Santos, round 1, TKO. And now it's... I'm not going to even attempt to copy Mr. Buffer. But we've moved on. It's the main event of the evening, sponsored by Metro PCS and Bud Light and all that other bollocks. That's the worst bit for me, because all you want is just get on with it. It's Cowboy, lightweight title, versus Dos Anjos. I have written some stuff down. I am going to read it. This may not work. 1 loss in the last 10 fights for Rafael Dos Anjos, and that was against the Russian Nurmagomedov. Try saying that with a mouthful of spaghetti. I don't know why spaghetti. It's just not an easy name to say. I remember when he first came into the UFC and it was like, what? Nurmagomedov. The Russian guy. He's got a record of 24-7, and most of those, or all of those losses came a while back. I think he's now with King's MMA, and since he's gone there, he's sort of made such huge strides. Been in the UFC since 2008. He started with 2 straight losses to Jeremy Stevens and Tyson Griffin back in the day. He has... Sorry. Man, that was... His last 2 wins have come via decision versus Nate Diaz and Pettis. Although we've seen what he did to Mr. Pettis. He pretty much mauled him for 5 rounds. Although it was like one of the early exchanges where Pettis said that he completely lost sight in one eye, or he just, threw him off his game completely. Dos Anjos did what he had to do, and it was a one-sided beatdown, let's be honest. So it's going to be interesting to see if Dos Anjos can do what he did before to Cerrone. He decisioned Cerrone. It was a while back. It was actually Cerrone's last loss in the UFC. If you love MMA, then you love the Cowboy. It's just his style. Everybody likes to see KOs, kicks, punches. He's good. He's got a good style. Kickboxing, Muay Thai. It's interesting. Cowboy fights are never dull. Let's put it that way. Or rarely. I think the only one that I could say where I didn't really see him perform was the Nate Diaz fight, which was a while back now. He's got 18 fights in the UFC and only 3 losses, so that's pretty decent. And those losses are to Nate Diaz, Pettis, and Dos Anjos in a decision. He's on an 8-fight streak, and those 8 fights have come in the last 2 years, 4 in 2014, and this will be his 4th in 2015, so one of the busiest and most active fighters on the roster. It was early January this year that he had a fight, I can't remember who it was with, but then he fought Benson Henderson, like 3 weeks after, which was pretty insane, but that's Cowboy. He likes to stay busy, and he loves Budweiser. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to go for, because I want this to happen, I want Cerrone to win. I think perhaps, I don't see either of the guys finishing each other. I think they're too well-rounded both. I'm going to go for a Cowboy decision, and I'm going to go for what I said on the last video, which was Cowboy calling out Conor McGregor, or whatever he calls him, McNugget. I think he will call him out in the octagon. I can see it happening. I hope it does, because I think that sets up this crazy-ass war. Whether it will be, I don't know. Maybe if the UFC can get New York at Madison Square Garden, that would be pretty fucking insane. I think that's in April. Or then you've got UFC 200, and unfortunately, Frankie Edgar might have to sit on the sidelines. But that's what I'm going for. I'm going for a Cowboy win, calling out McGregor in the octagon. I've got my McGregor shirt on today. Team McGregor. It's red panty night. So it's Saturday. This Saturday, 19th of December. I think the weigh-ins are on Friday, tomorrow, at 9 PM UK time. I only give UK times because I can't fucking work out the American stuff. BT Sport 2, the prelims start at 10 PM. And the main card starts at 1 AM on Sunday morning here in the UK. BT Sport 2. Set your Sky Plus, watch it Sunday morning. That's what I do. And then I'll hopefully put a video up. Perhaps Sunday, perhaps Monday. Fight Pass prelims as well. 8:30 kickoff on Saturday. Here in the UK, those are the times. UFC on Fox 17. Cerrone versus Dos Anjos for the lightweight title. Enjoy.